Hey, good morning everyone. This is Scott, owner of Three Rivers Painting, and today I'm doing a deck stain using the color Canyon Brown, which is a Sherwin-Williams transparent oil deck stain. With oil deck stains, transparent and semi-transparents are most popular, and this is a pretty popular color here in the Pacific Northwest, given the fact that we have pretty powerful sun in the summertime. So if a deck is completely exposed to the elements such as sun, those UV rays will really do a number on your decking. And generally, if you use something with less pigment, such as a natural or a clear coat, which may weatherproof the wood and basically seal it, it's not really, if there's no pigment, it's not really protecting from the sun, which means that it's going to require more upkeep, most likely every year, if it's in direct sunlight. Now, if your stain or your stained deck is more covered under a porch, or there's a pergola or a trellis or something that's kind of protecting it where it's getting partial sun, you might get some more life out of it. But for this particular deck stain, you can see it's got some decent pigment in it right here. So it's called Canyon Brown. It's got a little bit more of a darker brown pigment to it. You can go, I would say one of the more popular colors is natural cedar or cedar tone natural for Sherwin-Williams. A lot of different brands have various spin-offs of what they consider a cedar natural or a natural tone, and these have more of like a yellowish tint to them, or it's a very subtle tint. So it puts a slight tint in the wood with that pigment to protect from the sun, but it keeps more of the natural appearance of that wood. But again, if it's in direct sunlight, it's going to fade faster and be in need of a staining again, most likely annually. So this particular color is a popular color for people that want less maintenance. I'm not saying that your deck may not need to be stained annually still, even using a darker color, but generally the rule of thumb is the darker the pigment, the more protection from the sun. Obviously, if you go with a solid stain, which appears to be like paint, solid stains have the best UV protection. The downside to that is during the winter time, if you live in a seasonal state that has winter, then when you start shoveling snow off your decking and that shovel digs into the decking, given the fact that it's similar to paint, it's going to peel right up. And a lot of people like to keep that natural character of the wood and, prefer a penetration of an oil-based stain to keep that natural character and that rustic look more than an artificial appearance of paint for their decking. So it all comes down to preference. But outside of that, the process that I use, I made another video on this channel relative to how I apply the stain. And it was a quick, brief overview. There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle that I omitted, but in general, the key to having a really good quality finished stain deck is cleaning it properly and sanding it. So if you have any questions, you can check out one of my other videos, which goes over, briefly goes over the process that I do to prepare the deck and get ready for stain application. Now, it's mid-morning here, partly cloudy, the sun's popping out, we had a cold evening. Generally, not staining in direct sunlight, if possible, is the best course of action and approach. If you are, the stain is a one-coat product. When you're dealing with oil-based stains like this, you want to put it on one coat. If you put on two coats, I've seen a lot of homeowners do this, they put on way too much product, they'll go over it again if they miss spots, and because it's a one-coat stain and sealer, if you put a second coat on, it may look better in terms of darker pigment, but what ends up happening is, because it's a one-coat product, it just becomes tacky and sticky, which means a lot of the pollen and dirt's going to stick to it. And when it comes time to thoroughly sanding it, when you're ready to refinish your deck again, if you rent a floor sander or you have an orbital sander, you're going to be going through twice the sandpaper and twice the manpower to get all that thick amount of excess stain off. I've had some projects where I've had a floor sander with the most coarse grit that they've had to completely strip the deck, and I've had to make 5, 6, 7 passes over that area. Now, if it's a small deck, it's not the end of the world, but if you're dealing with a really large square footage deck, it could take you 4 or 5 times as long as you thought, and 4 to 5 times as long the rental time for that floor sander as well as sandpaper. So that's something to keep in mind in terms of staining this. Now, my approach to application, there's a few different ways you can do this. Some companies will spray on the oil stain. When it comes to oil stain, I'm a professional painter. I love deck staining and fence staining, but I try to avoid spraying oil stain. And the reason being is that oil stain will travel in the air much further than water-based acrylic paints for overspray. And if you overspray with oil and you don't have the area masked off, you could have liabilities where it's getting on people's vehicles and windows and other parts that need to be either repainted or replaced. So there's a little bit more liability, and also where it's a one-coat product, you'd have to work in isolated areas, easy to get overspray, go over the same area twice. So the way that I do it probably isn't as fast, but at the same time, I know that it's a quality finish. So if I'm in direct sunlight, I'll do 2 boards at a time. Because it's a one-coat product, I will brush in between the gaps and do an entire length of a board first. And the reason I do this is if this was direct sun and really hot out and you stop halfway through a board and it dries and you come back to brush the other area, you're going to see a stop and start, or what we call lap marks with staining and painting contractors. So the finished product isn't going to look very good. So I've brushed on oil stain before and it's come out fine. The downside to just brushing and not going over it with a floor applicator or wiping off the excess is that you won't have a uniform finish. Because it's a one-coat product, if you just brush it on and you have a board that kind of is weathered and kind of sinks like this, you could have excess stain there. When that cures, it's going to have a glossy appearance, and that glossy appearance is excess stain. It can be removed if you use, some type of cleaner like, acetone, mineral spirits. You could probably get a light rag and wipe off that excess. Generally, over time, the sun's going to dull it down anyways. But to have the best quality appearance, I brush 1 to 2 boards at a time when I'm in direct sunlight. Unless it's a cool day, I might do 3 or 4, and if I have a helper. And then after I brush those 1 or 2 boards, I take a floor applicator with a handle, so I'm not killing my back, and I lightly wipe over it. I'm not pushing down hard, I'm just taking that floor applicator with a stick or a handle and an extension rod and just lightly pulling it back. And that ensures that it's completely even, and when it actually cures, it's curing in a uniform appearance. Also, you want to make sure you're not boxing yourself in. So where I'm on a deck here, you can see I'm going to be working my way off the deck, not into a corner where I have to step over the areas that I've stained. After you do this, you want 24 to 48 hours generally for it to cure before you put patio furniture back on or walk on it. And that's pretty much it in a nutshell. What I also do is during the sanding process, if there's any loose screws, I'll make sure I reset them if there's a squeaky board. Sometimes those are stripped out, so you might want to get a second screw, use a drill, try to secure that board. What I always tell homeowners too is if they have a split board they want to replace after I've stained it for them, or if you're a homeowner doing this on your own, not the end of the world. After it cures, you can replace that board and just stain that individual board, and it should look fine. So that's about it for today. That's staining decks in a nutshell. And if you guys have any questions, leave a comment below. Again, this color is Canyon Brown. It's got a little bit of a darker brown pigment. Typically with transparent, semi-transparent stains, you have either like an orange undertone, yellow, or brown. They have some different types of stains where people get like whitewash appearances or more of like a moss green. They have solid stains, semi-solid, semi-opaques, which look like a whitewash where you can see some of the knots, but it looks like a mix between a solid and a transparent. Those are pretty rare. Not a lot of people will use that. In most cases, the most popular is going to be oil, transparent and semi-transparent stains, as well as just solid stains, which look like paint. So hope that helps for today. Have a great day.